Hello and welcome back to NPC. That show stands for Next Portable Console, and we are going to talk about consoles and the console wars again.
Oh.
I'm Federico Vitici, one of your co-hosts. I'm also joined by Mr. John Boris. Hello, John.
Hello, Federico.
And Brendon Bigley. Mr. Brendon Bigley is also here with us today.
Hello. Glad to be here in the year of Pocopia.
I was just talking about Pocopia with John before doing this. We were recording on Wind, and my plan is to finish all my podcast recordings today and finally dig into Pocopia and whatever the Ditto wants me to do.
The Ditto wants you to do a lot, Tichi.
There's a lot. An endless amount of tasks.
I bet the Ditto wants me to work. So we're gonna talk about Sony, PlayStation, Microsoft, Xbox.
The gang's all here, folks.
The gang's all here. We're gonna talk about that. John, we have some follow up. I think
We do.
Yeah.
I don't mean to talk about Ramageddon every single week. However, there was just a big story this morning as we record this in Bloomberg that's talking about how Nintendo and the Switch 2 is in kind of a rough spot because they didn't put a lot of onboard storage in the device, and the micro express SD cards are expensive and getting more expensive. Apparently, most of the manufacturers of those cards have upped the prices about 30%. Nintendo is still subsidizing some cards that are made by Samsung to try to keep at least some availability at lower prices.
Those are the ones with Mario on them, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. But at the same time, as the story points out, and we've talked about in the past, a lot of these games are very large games. They're 100 gigabytes plus. And so you can fill 30, 40% of your onboard storage very easily with a couple of big titles. And then you've got really no choice unless you want to be swapping back and forth frequently to get yourself a good size micro SD card.
Yeah, I feel like I've been managing my data on my Switch 2 more than I ever did on my original Switch. Really, more than I do on any console I own.
How big of a card did you put in yours? Do you remember?
I honestly don't know.
It
only shows me how much space is free, not how much space is.
I was going to look too, but I think I maybe got a 512. But yeah.
I think my thought was I'm going to get one at launch and then naively, I guess, buy a cheaper, bigger one when more manufacturers start making them down the line.
On like a Black Friday or something, yeah.
Increasingly seems like may never happen.
Yeah. How about you, Federico? Do you feel like you've been managing your storage a lot?
Not really, but also, if I'm not mistaken, I bought one of those really expensive ones at launch.
Yeah.
So that I... when what's the brand that I used? You send me the link.
Lexar?
John. Maybe.
I think it was Lexar.
Lexar was making the terabyte ones.
Yeah. That's what I got last year, and it was really expensive. And I got rid of the Mario one, and I haven't worried about storage ever since.
I had a smaller one that was 256, and I ended up putting it in the Mangmi of all things because it's the only micro SD card I had in the house that I could find. So I went with Express, which is like more than overkill for a device like that. But
yeah, that's funny.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, so let's talk about Sony and PlayStation.
Yeah, let's talk about Sony.
According to a report by Jason Schreier at Bloomberg, Sony is reportedly abandoning their PC port gaming plans, and they are returning to console exclusives.
Yeah.
This
is for single-player games. It's worth mentioning.
Single-player games. Ghost of Yotei on PC is canceled, not coming out anymore. And Marathon and Death Stranding 2 will still release on PC, but Yotei will not. And
what was the other one? Oh, Saros, the new game by
Saros, right.
is also not coming to PC.
Also not coming out.
It's so funny. I see people talking about that one as like, that just felt like a PC game first and foremost, Saros. And it's such a bummer that one's not coming
I was surprised reading this story that it's been 6 years that Sony's been doing this because I thought it'd been like 2.
Doesn't feel.
It doesn't feel like it's been that long. Yeah,
it doesn't feel like it. Yeah. So reportedly, the issue is that games like the God of War ports for PC and The Last of Us and also Horizon, they underperformed, whatever the word underperform means in the gaming industry these days. And so Sony decided, well, you know what? We're just going to go back to console exclusives for single-player games.
Yeah.
Now, so I feel like we had this, we built for ourselves this mental image of Sony in the future, Sony as a multi-platform game publisher.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not happening anymore.
No.
Right.
Yeah, it's a good thing I didn't just recently make a video about selling all of my consoles and moving everything to PC.
Right.
Under the assumption that this would continue.
I actually sold my PlayStation 5 Pro.
Again? Oh my God.
I still have mine.
Yeah.
I sold it.
You know what's funny? I hadn't sold. I got rid of my Xbox. I haven't sold my PS5 yet. So thankfully, I guess I still have a way.
Yeah,
of
I want to play Yote. I was waiting for the PC version.
Yeah, I started playing Yote on PS5, and then I was like, this is going to be way better on PC. So I put it down.
Yeah, that's what I did. I sold my PS5 Pro thinking, oh, you know what? And I mean, I'm sure we talked about this. I have a PC with a 5090. I'm going to be set forever at this point. As long as Sony is concerned, that's not the plan anymore. But, so this idea, essentially Sony is going back to 10 years ago. The classic Nintendo approach, it seems, of we have our games, we have our consoles. The only way you can get our games is via our consoles. What I think this becomes really interesting is this thought projected 2 years into the future with the PS5, with the PS6, with the PlayStation 6, and potentially a PlayStation 6 handheld, according to the rumors. I think there's a not so wild scenario at this point where we are going back to a duopoly in the console world of Sony versus Nintendo, both via home consoles and with handhelds. Obviously, Nintendo makes a console that is both. But essentially, we're going back to 10 years ago. And I keep having this thought of Sony tried to become a game publisher and realized that there's more money to be made in following Nintendo's footsteps and using software as a way to sell hardware. Is that the idea? Especially for a company that is planning multiple versions of a PlayStation 6? Is that what they're doing?
I feel like they've saw an opening to hurt Xbox here because of the shortages of RAM and the like. That they see things like the Steam Deck, they see the Windows handhelds, they see all these things coming out. And those companies are going to struggle. We've already seen Valve put off, the Steam machine. They're going to struggle for the next couple of years getting hardware out the door. So why not pull your games, let those companies continue to suffer, and then come riding back in with new hardware options? I mean, it's pretty ruthless, but I can see that being the strategy here. I
think one of the big points too at the end of that Bloomberg piece was the ongoing rumors that the next Xbox is just going to be a PC with the Xbox game front end on top of it, which would hypothetically mean that the Xbox would then run PlayStation games,
right?
And not vice versa, unless Xbox themselves decided to publish those games to PS5 or PS6. So going into the next generation, there is a world where the messaging around Xbox could be like, buy an Xbox and you get every game. Buy a PlayStation, you just get PlayStation games, which I think is a thing that they want to preemptively avoid, which I think makes sense. Outside of multiplayer games, I see a lot of people talking about Helldivers 2 and how would Helldivers 2 have performed if it was not a cross-platform release at launch?
Right.
Probably not as well. PC really made up the bulk of that game's success. But I'm kind of two minds about this. I think this is actually the right decision for them, although I'm unhappy with it, if I'm being totally honest.
Yes.
The question you posed at the beginning, Federico, about are they following in Nintendo's footsteps? Most companies should be following in Nintendo's footsteps. Nintendo is the only rock solid bet in this industry, basically always. They're the only ones who come out ahead more often than they don't. And I feel like any company that is trying to succeed long-term, be around 10 years from now, should be doing what Nintendo is doing. On the other hand, if the reasoning behind this is that some of the recent games didn't sell as well as they want to. First of all, they're still selling millions of copies or hundreds of thousands of copies, which is hundreds of thousands or millions of copies that they weren't selling on the PS5 because they're now addressing a much larger market on the PC.
Right.
So that's weird in the first place. And second of all, a lot of the games that they're pointing to as the ones that underperformed are games that also like didn't perform super well critically or weren't as well loved as the ones that did perform. You know, like Spider-Man 2, despite being a pretty good game, is not a game that people loved as much as Spider-Man 1 or Miles Morales. God of War Ragnarok, same deal. I was one of these people, but there were a lot of people who kind of looked at that game and played it and thought, this feels like a little bit of a more of the same. We're kind of treading water here. We're not really going bigger and better in the ways that I feel like this game should. And I have to imagine that when you're releasing the same game 6 months to a year later for the exact same price it launched a year ago and trying to capture a market which has now 1 year later landed on a critical consensus of this is not as good as the last one, it shouldn't be so surprising that these games don't sell as well as the last ones.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But, we're recording this on the day Marathon is coming out, the next big PlayStation Studios release. And, that's a big multiplayer shooter that's launching across all platforms, including Xbox. And from what I have seen, at least sales numbers wise, is already succeeding because of that strategy. So I'm of two minds about this. I'm just kind of disappointed that I don't get to play Ghost of Yotei on PC, if I'm being honest. But c'est la vie, I guess. I think it probably makes the most sense. As much as I'm not a fan of console exclusives, like that's just kind of my philosophy on this.
Yeah.
If you look at Nintendo's entire history as a company, it's the way to go.
Yeah, it's just I think we got a little taste of this dream of, well, maybe you can just consolidate, with PC and Nintendo.
Yeah.
And it turns out it's going to be sort of like a hybrid of what we imagined, because we started, years ago, used to be Sony, Nintendo, Xbox, PC. Most likely, it seems like Xbox is no longer going to be a variable. We're going to talk about that in Excel, I think.
Yeah.
But instead of going down to two options, PC and Nintendo, realistically, we're going to be stuck with three: PC, PlayStation, Nintendo, which is better than four. But I would have preferred just having the two options.
Yeah. And then in like some nebulous space, kind of floating outwards, is like Android and Linux.
Yes.
There's like kind of a whiff of like maybe this could somehow show
Hopefully.
up and take the crown.
Yeah.
Yeah, and speaking of Android and Linux,
Yes.
actually it takes us quite perfectly into our next topic. Ambernick posted a video of the RG Vita Pro running both Linux and Android. John, what should we know about this?
So this device is powered by the Rockchip RK3576. Okay, for those for those not in the know, that's a better chip than the other than the other device. And
believe it or not, the Pro has a better chip than the not Pro.
It does. At least Ambernick got that figured out, and it's got Android OS on it, but it's got Gamma OS baked into there too. So that's a potentially big deal. Gamma's really taken off and doing a lot of interesting things these days, and I think that it's kind of interesting to me that that's coming to an Ambernick device. But so yeah, what that chip means is that ultimately you'll be able to play higher end consoles. You'll be able to play things like they demoed things like PS2, PSP, GameCube, and even the Wii. So I mean, we'll see how it shakes out once people have this in their hands. We don't know much more about it at this point. There's a lot of details to kind of come out. It's the usual kind of phased release strategy that Ambernick uses.
I'm curious to see if it becomes usable for Vita at all at this point. I mean, we've talked already about Vita emulation being kind of iffy. Yeah. I've been experimenting with it a little bit more recently, and it's definitely in a better place than it was like even a year or 2 years ago.
Yeah.
But I'm curious. I mean, this being the first chip or the first device using this chip, it feels like really untested waters. This is not a device that I feel like I can recommend until reviews start coming out.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Federico,
All right,
you
guys.
want to take the next one? We've got an
Please.
interesting concept here from
Please.
Lenovo.
I've been dying to talk about this. This is all. This is all for me. So if you recall, at the end of last year, I predicted that we were going to see more foldable handhelds in 2026.
Boy,
and so
does
far,
this one fold.
does this one fold? At Mobile World Congress, which I always forget that it's a thing in Barcelona, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Every in early every year, Lenovo showed off the Lenovo Legion Go Fold, which is a. Let me describe this to you. So it's a foldable tablet. It's a foldable modular tablet that has an 11.6 inch OLED display that can fold and become a 7.7 inch folded display. This thing can be a tablet, a laptop if you attach a keyboard with a trackpad, and it can also become a giant handheld with two split controllers attached to the sides of the unfolded tablet.
In either direction, too.
In either direction, because you can attach these controllers in landscape orientation or in portrait orientation to have the world's biggest Nintendo DS in your hands. This thing is it's an important note. This thing is a prototype. It's a concept/prototype that, however, Lenovo brought to the show floor, and people were taking pictures and showing off these things. So it's not a concept render. They have produced, you would think, at least some units of this thing, but we have no pricing details, no release date, nothing. But I keep thinking that as far as high-end devices are concerned, I said this last year and I continue to say this now, I feel like something like this that you can really mark up in price and really sell to the high-end customers, this is obviously the future for these kinds of companies. Now that handhelds, like the handheld form factor is pretty much a solved problem, right? It's just a matter of picking your configuration for RAM, good luck, and SoC. But if you really want to push the frontier forward, it seems like the recent improvements in foldable display technology are the way to go for these companies that want to sell to the high-end market.
Mm-hmm.
And especially Lenovo. I mean, Lenovo is no stranger to selling expensive, well-built products, I would say, to high-end customers.
Yeah.
Look, if money were no object, and if this was pretty decent, I would be all over this kind of product. It's so ridiculous.
This is like really a bullseye on your dartboard.
Yes. Like this is pure Federico energy everywhere. Yes. I mean, everywhere. It's a tablet. There's a keyboard. You have the two controllers. Yeah. You can switch the orientation. I mean, it's incredible, right? The controllers can be attached. You can use it. You can use them via Bluetooth. It's got everything. It's got an OLED panel. You can fold it. It becomes smaller. You can take it to go in a bag or something. I mean, it's fantastic, but it's going to run Windows, and it's going to be either crazy expensive or it's never coming out. John is convinced that it's never coming out.
I'm convinced, yes.
Yeah, unfortunately.
First of all, I think it would be unbelievably expensive.
Yeah, 3,000 for sure.
3 to 4, I would say, somewhere in that range.
Yeah, with these specs.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Do we know, Federico, do these controllers, I know that they can attach wirelessly, but do they have an option for wired, like through a USB-C port? I would expect not.
I'm not sure.
Because otherwise, because if they would require 4 USB-C ports on this thing.
Yeah, I don't think they have the USB mode. I think they just have the Bluetooth mode when they are detached. And one of them also has a mouse function, so there's that. And I should mention, this thing is running the Intel Lunar Lake, so it's not AMD based. 32 gigs of RAM, 1 terabyte of storage, 638 grams without the controllers.
Oh, without.
So you're gonna when this thing is fully mounted, transformer style, you're gonna hold 1 kilogram in your hands for sure.
Yeah.
Pretty wild.
Oh my God! And I thought the Legion Go was unwieldy.
And you thought the Legion Go was too much. How about a Legion Go Fold?
Unreal.
Yeah.
Unreal, but I think John is probably right. Due to a combination of industry problems, it's probably never coming out. If it's coming out, it's not coming out this year.
No. 2-3 years from now, maybe. But I mean, it's essentially 2 Legion Go screens stacked on top of each other. If you think of it that way, right? Because the Legion Go is 7 inches, and this is 2 7.7 inch screens, so it's even bigger than 2 stacked ones. But
I mean, the photo, I'm not sure if we can put it in the video or in the show notes. The photo of the portrait orientation is truly something else.
it's unhinged.
It's just,
well, technically,
No, technically it is hinged.
It is
Extremely
hinged.
it's just like
the
holding
most-
a television vertically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ultra hinged.
Yeah. Well, I was, contractually obligated to mention this on the show.
Yeah.
We are going to talk about whatever is going on at Xbox and Microsoft in NPC XL. And also I have some said Red Magic follow-up with a twist.
I think Brendon has a little topic for us too, a little
I do.
surprise
I have
topic.
a little tiny one.
You have a little tiny one now or for XL?
I could do it now. Why don't I do it now before XL?
Do it now, yes.
All I wanted to talk about was Resident Evil 9 on the Switch 2.
Okay.
Have either of you checked this out?
I have not.
Not yet.
Oh my god. All right, so I'm a big Resident Evil fan. I started playing Resident Evil 9 on PC just because obviously I wanted the PC experience, but I kept seeing stuff about how impressive the Switch 2 port was. I shouldn't say port. It's not a port. They launched it on Switch 2, so it's a Switch 2 version. I started playing the Switch 2 version. Guys, this is like the game to show people.
Really?
If you want to prove that the Switch 2 is like the real deal, packs a wallop power-wise, and that developers are really like inventing new ways of squeezing power out of this thing, Resident Evil 9 is as close to the metal as you can get. I thought Cyberpunk was really impressive. This feels like a completely different level, especially compared to my experience on PC. You should just go watch some footage or something of like docked mode and handheld mode, honestly. I've had a couple instances, obviously, where the frame rate has suffered a little bit. If you've played the game, there's like a sniper sequence that was a little tough. It wasn't terrible, like it was still playable. I made it through, but it was definitely like I was watching the frames drop. But for the most part, I have been playing this game almost entirely because I've been here at my brother-in-law's house. I've been playing almost the whole game in handheld mode, and it's been like mostly rock solid the whole time, and looking gorgeous, like really, really, really impressive. I can't recommend it highly enough.
I am watching a video now, and I can't believe how good it looks.
Yeah,
What?
It's amazing. The Resident Evil engine in particular is just like ridiculous.
Yeah.
But I think the thing that's notable to me is like this game, Cyberpunk, Assassin's Creed Shadows, Star Wars Outlaws, like these third-party developers are really like going to bat for the Switch 2 and trying to get as powerful as they possibly can with it, which is pretty wild.
Yeah, and it's still early, early in its life cycle, so that's great to see.
Yeah. It's amazing.
Silly question, Brendon.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
How scary is it?
It kind of oscillates between being scary and not scary, I would say. It's because you're playing as two different characters. One of them is named Grace, and she is in like a classic early Resident Evil game for the most part. Her stuff is like first person. You're crawling around. Zombies take like 14 bullets to the head to kill, and you're like puzzle solving and playing like a video game. And then you switch to Leon from Resident Evil 4, or 2, or 6, or what have you. And the Leon sequences are full on like campy 80s action.
Okay.
He is roundhouse kicking zombies to the face to kill them instead of even shooting them. Like he is on a completely different level, and he has every gun and grenades and Molotov cocktails. Like he's like ready to go. So you're switching back and forth between them, which creates this really good tension and release. So you have moments of like, for 3 hours, I am literally crouching, trying to be completely silent. And then for 30 minutes, I'm running through the same area as Leon with a shotgun. Like, it's awesome.
Nice.
It's really well done.
All right. Well, thank you for the update, Brendon.
Yeah.
Now we're going to move on to NPC XL for our Patreon members.
Let's do it.
And in the meantime, people can find us on the internet. Brendon is obviously blogging at wavelengths.online and also doing YouTube and Into the Aether.
Yeah, baby.
John and I are just hanging around at macstories.net. You can find all of us on Blue Sky, Mastodon. Those are usually the places where you can find us, beyond the websites. And I think that's it, guys.
It is.
We'll be back next week.
Bye, everyone.
See you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.